I never thought I'd be that guy. The guy who finds out the worst thing about his wife on the day he proposed. I mean, really, who does that happen to? I was so high on happiness, so sure of everything, my future, her love, our dreams. And then I stumble into her drawer. Just a casual late-night rummage that turned my entire world upside down. It started small. I was looking for a pen, a fresh one because I was about to call my parents. I opened her drawer and saw her makeup, some jewelry, a couple of receipts, normal stuff. But then nestled behind a stack of tissues I saw it, a pregnancy test. Not just any, but one that was clearly used. The test was still in her hand, the stick tipped with a faint pink line. My stomach sank. I froze, my heart pounding in a weird, uneven tempo. I blinked, trying to process what I was looking at. I didn't even notice my hands trembling until I closed her drawer slowly, so damn loud I thought for a second she might hear me from the other room. I didn't even think about the timing, what she was doing with that test. I just knew it was wrong. I remembered the last few days, how she'd been acting strange, her excuses for late nights, her avoiding me when I tried to talk about the future. But this was something else, something I never expected. My mind spun, racing through all the possibilities. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The room suddenly felt too hot, then too cold, like I was caught between two different worlds. I pulled out my phone and looked at the clock. It was midnight. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I'd always thought she was honest, loyal, even when she'd been tested. I trusted her. But now I wasn't sure if I'd ever truly known her. I stared at the evidence in my hand, tiny, fragile, yet it carried so much weight. My fingers trembled as I clenched my fists. I had to think. Did I confront her right now? Or wait? The urge to storm into her room and demand answers was so strong I could taste the adrenaline sharp on my tongue. But I knew better. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the rough fabric against my palms, my stomach twisted. My head was a mess of questions and raw, blistering anger. I wasn't just betrayed, I was fucking crushed. How could she do this to me, to us? I remembered the countless nights we'd spent planning our future, the promises, the laughs, the quiet moments I thought she cherished just as much as I did. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to think. I needed to plan. This wasn't just about a secret, it was about every damn thing I believed in. The trust I'd built, the future I'd envisioned, all gone in a second. As I sat there, I realized how quiet it was, no supposed accident, no warning signs, just this tiny stick with its cruel truth. I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears, deafening. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought I might crack a tooth. My mind spun with questions. How long has she been hiding this? Who else knew? And most of all, how do I confront her without losing what little I have left? I looked at the door, knowing I'd have to face her soon. The worst part was that I didn't even know if I could. My hands felt clammy, my vision blurred with a mixture of shock and rage. I knew this was just the beginning of something far worse. And yet I kept thinking about her, about how I'd loved her, how I trusted her. But now I was starting to see her for what she really was, someone capable of hiding something this deep, this cruel, behind the smile she always wore. I stood up, feeling the weight of the revelation crushing my chest. My first instinct was to leave, to walk out and never come back. But I knew I wouldn't. Not yet. I had to face her. I had to hear her lie. Or maybe, just maybe, I needed to hear the truth straight from her mouth, whatever that was. And in that quiet, dark room, I realized this was only the beginning. I waited, standing by the doorway, my fists clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Every muscle in my body felt tense, like I was holding back a storm. I kept telling myself to just walk in, to confront her, but my mind kept racing. What was I even going to say? How do you start a conversation like this? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. The air in the room felt thick, almost suffocating, like I was trapped in a bubble of betrayal. I could hear her moving around in the other room, her footsteps hesitant, like she sensed I was nearby but didn't know what I'd find. Finally, I cracked the door open just a little. Her back was turned, sorting through some clothes. She looked normal. Well, as normal as someone who had kept a secret like that could appear. Her shoulders were tense, and I saw her wipe her palms on her jeans as she reached for a shirt. That tiny, cruel stick burned in my mind. I cleared my throat. "Hey," I said quietly, but my voice sounded strange, like I was trying to sound calm, but it came out rough. She spun around, her eyes wide like she'd been caught in a lie. What are you doing?" she asked, voice trembling. "Looking for a pen," I said, voice tight. I tried to keep my tone even, but the anger simmered just beneath the surface. I knew I had to keep it together, at least for now. She looked at me, then at her hands. I was just tidying up. Nothing's wrong, really. I took a step closer, my jaw clenched so hard I thought I might crack a tooth. "Because I found something I think you want to explain." Her face paled and her eyes flicked to the drawer I'd just been in. For a second I saw her trying to come up with a lie, but I knew better. I saw the flush on her cheeks, the way her hands fidgeted. "Look, I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, voice barely audible. "Come on," I snapped. "You think I just stumbled on that by accident, the pregnancy test? Did you really think I wouldn't find out, or did you want me to?" She hesitated, then looked away. Her lips trembled. That's when I saw the tears starting to form. The betrayal was written all over her face, but she was trying to hide it. I felt my stomach turn, a mixture of rage and heartbreak twisting inside me. "You lied to me," I said, voice cracking. "All this time I thought you were honest, that we were building something real, and it turns out you've been hiding this from me the whole damn time." She finally whispered, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Didn't mean for me?" I echoed, voice rising. "That's bullshit. Did you think I wouldn't care, that you could just keep this secret forever?" Her shoulders shook as she started to cry. I felt a sick twist in my stomach. I hated seeing her like that, but I hated myself even more for walking into this nightmare. Whatever feelings I had left, they were drowning in the flood of betrayal. I turned away for a second, trying to get a grip. I went to the window, stared out at the dark street, and took a deep breath. I knew I couldn't just walk away and pretend everything was fine. I had to decide what to do next. When I turned back, she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, don't do anything stupid. I was going to tell you eventually." "Yeah, right," I spat. "Once you figured out how to spin the story, but you lied, and that changes everything." I wanted to scream, to shake her until she understood how badly she'd hurt me, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "We're done. I need some time to think, and I want you out of the house. Now." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. No protests, no excuses, just silent tears. I reached for the keys on the counter, turned my back, and walked out, feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me more with each step. As I closed the door behind me, I knew this wasn't just about the affair or the pregnancy. It was about everything I thought I knew about her, about us. And I realized, somewhere deep inside, I was already planning my response. Because if she thought she could keep secrets like that from me, she had another thing coming. The moment I stepped out that door, I felt like I was shedding a layer of myself I'd never known I had. My hands still trembled, and my mind was a jumble of anger, confusion, and a strange sense of clarity. I had to get a grip, had to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I knew confronting her again wasn't an option right now. She was already broken, and I didn't want to crush her more. But I also knew I couldn't just walk away from this without a plan. I went straight to my car, the cold metal of the keys digging into my palm. The engine roared to life, but I couldn't bring myself to drive anywhere yet. I just sat there for a while, staring at the dark street, feeling the weight of the betrayal pressing down on my chest. The blood pounding in my ears drowned out everything else. My stomach did a weird flip. I kept seeing her face, that tear-streaked expression from earlier. I remembered the way she'd tried to hide her guilt, how her voice cracked when she said she was going to tell me eventually. That feeling of betrayal was a knife twisting deeper every second. I finally forced myself to think clearly. If I was going to do something about this, I needed a plan. Not a reckless one, but something precise. I wasn't just going to storm back in and demand answers. No, I had to be smart, cold even. The first step was gathering facts, evidence. I'd seen enough for now, but I needed more. Exactly how long she'd been hiding this, who else knew what her intentions were. I'd also need to figure out my next move carefully, how to confront her without losing control. I thought about calling my brother. Yeah, that was a logical first step. But then I hesitated. I didn't want to just dump everything on him right away. I needed to control the narrative to make sure I stayed one step ahead. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts, my finger hovering over his name. I couldn't ignore the fact that he'd been close to her, too. Had they been hiding something all along? I'd always trusted my brother, but now that trust was shattered into pieces. Still, I decided to keep that thought for later. Right now, I needed to focus on what I knew and what I could do. I drove to a quiet park nearby, letting the cold air clear my head. I sat on a bench, feeling the rough texture against my palms and looked up at the stars. The silence was deafening. For the first time in years, I wondered if I even knew her at all, or if I'd been fooling myself all along. My hands clenched into fists as I thought about the lies. All those nights I'd been so sure we were building something real. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How long had she been living this double life? And most terrifying of all, had she ever really loved me? I knew the answer wouldn't come easy. But I also knew I had to do something. I couldn't let this go, not without consequences. I refused to be the fool who got played. That's what her lies felt like, a damn game. Then I remembered something from earlier when I'd seen that pregnancy test. The way she'd looked at me when I confronted her, the way her hands trembled, those weren't just guilt or fear. Maybe, just maybe, she'd been trying to hide something even bigger, something that could blow everything wide open. I pulled out a small notebook from my pocket and scribbled down what I knew, the evidence I'd found, her strange behavior, the timeline I was starting to piece together. I looked at the notes and realized that I needed to be meticulous. No impulsiveness, no rash moves. If I was going to expose her, I had to do it on my terms. My mind was already working on my revenge plan, not something petty or destructive, but something that would truly make her feel the sting of betrayal. I wanted her to understand that her lies had consequences, serious ones. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some fool to be played. But first I needed to wait for the right moment. Wait until I could confront her with all the facts, calm, collected, ready to make her see the damage she'd done. As I sat there, I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, about making her understand that I wasn't going to be a victim of her deception. Not without a fight, not without making her regret ever crossing me. And so I took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill my lungs, and made a silent vow. I was going to get my justice, one way or another. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My muscles ached from the emotional roller coaster of the night before, and my mind was still spinning with plans I hadn't yet finalized. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. That tiny stick had opened a floodgate, and I knew I couldn't just pretend everything was okay. I spent the day piecing together what I could, reviewing our conversations, analyzing her recent behavior, and trying to get a sense of how far her lies might go. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I also didn't want to be blindsided again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she'd been hiding. That pregnancy test was just the tip of the iceberg. In the afternoon, I called my brother. His voice sounded cautious when he answered. "Hey," I said, my tone flat. "Can we meet up? I need to talk to you about something important." He hesitated a beat, then said, "Sure, is everything okay?" "Not really," I admitted, "but I need your honest opinion. It's about her." We arranged to meet that evening at a quiet bar. I wanted to keep this discreet, no public scenes, no one else involved. I sat across from him, feeling the tension settle between us. "Look," I found a pregnancy test in her drawer last night. Used. That's not just a slip-up, that's a huge deal. I think they've been hiding something from me." He looked surprised, then uneasy. "Wow, I had no idea. Do you think she's been lying about everything?" "I don't know," I murmured. "But I do know she's been distant lately. Tons of excuses for late nights, avoiding my questions, and that test. It confirms she's been keeping something from me, and I'm betting it's not just a mistake." He took a long sip of his beer, studying me. "What are you planning to do now?" I hesitated before answering. "Honestly, I don't know yet, but I'm thinking of confronting her again with everything I've got. I want her to feel what it's like to be caught. And I want her to understand that I won't be played for a fool." His brow furrowed. "That's smart, but be careful. If she's capable of hiding something that big, she might turn things around on you. You need to be prepared for whatever she throws back." "I know," I said sharply. "That's why I'm not rushing into anything. I've been gathering evidence and I've got a plan. I want her to see that I'm serious." He nodded, biting his lip. "Just be sure you're doing this for yourself, not just revenge. Otherwise, it'll eat you alive." I looked at him, feeling that familiar mix of anger and pain. Revenge isn't just about hurting her. It's about making sure she understands she can't keep secrets from me, that I'm not some fool she can manipulate. That night I stayed awake, working through the details of my plan. I'd set a trap of sorts. Not a destructive one, but enough to expose her. I wanted her to see that I knew about everything, her lies, her hiding, her betrayal. The moment she slipped up again, I'd be ready. I couldn't sleep well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the tears, the guilt. And I knew that once I confronted her again, nothing would be the same. I was entering a new phase, a game of truths and lies, and I was determined to win. Tomorrow I would make my move. But for now I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling the cold resolve settle deep in my bones. This wasn't just about her cheating, it was about reclaiming my dignity. And I was willing to do whatever it took, because a man who's been betrayed like this doesn't just walk away. He fights back. The next day I woke up early, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and dread. My mind raced through every detail of my plan. I'd spent the night reviewing everything, her words, her actions, the evidence I'd collected, and I was ready to execute. I wasn't going to give her the chance to deny or spin things anymore. Today, I was going to make her face the truth with no room for excuses. I brewed a strong cup of coffee, the bitter smell filling the quiet apartment. It was the only thing that kept my nerves from completely unraveling. I kept replaying the scene I envisioned, rehearsing exactly what I'd say, how I'd stay calm, how I'd catch her in her lies if she tried to deny everything. I had to be precise, cold, but not reckless. By midday, I knew it was time. I texted her simple message, "Can we talk now?" Her reply was hesitant, but she agreed to meet in the living room. I watched her walk in, her face tense, eyes flickering with guilt and fear. A part of me wanted to reach out to comfort her, but I knew better. So I started, voice level but firm. "Let's talk about last night." She looked down, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," she whispered. "Really? Because I found this," I said, pulling out the pregnancy test from my pocket. I held it up so she could see. Her eyes widened, her breath hitching. "That's not what it looks like," she mumbled, voice cracking. "Not what it looks like," I repeated coldly. "It looks pretty damn clear to me. Used, and I know it's yours." She flinched, tears welling up again, but she said nothing. I pressed on. "Tell me the truth. How long has this been going on? Were you planning to tell me, or was I just supposed to be blindsided?" She looked away, voice barely audible. "It was a mistake, just once. I didn't mean for you to find out." I felt my fists tight. "Just once? Is that why you've been avoiding me, canceling plans, acting like you're somewhere else?" Her eyes flicked back to mine, full of shame. "I didn't want to hurt you. I was scared." "Scared?" I mocked, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "You're sorry now. Sorry doesn't cut it." Her silence hung heavy. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Look, I'm not here to yell or throw accusations. I just want to know what the hell this all means. How long have you been lying? Who else knew about this?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Since before the wedding. I thought I could fix it, that it was just a mistake." I felt my stomach turn. So she'd been hiding this the entire time, while we were planning our future, while I believed everything was perfect. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my jaw and said, "And I suppose the pregnancy is real. That's why you've been distant, avoiding me." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to lose everything. I was scared you'd leave." I looked away, rage boiling inside me. I knew I had to stay disciplined. If I lost control now, I'd ruin everything. But I also knew I couldn't just walk away and forget. No, I needed a plan, one that would make her regret ever betraying me. I decided I'd give her a chance to come clean completely. I told her to sit down. "You're going to tell me everything about the affair, about how long you've been hiding this and what your plans were, and then we'll see what's left of us." She looked at me, eyes glassy, defeated. "I was going to tell you, I swear." I shook my head slowly. "Too late for that. What's done is done. Now you're going to face the consequences." As she sat there, trembling, I realized I'd crossed a point of no return. I was no longer the man who believed in fairy tales. I was someone who'd been betrayed at the core, and I was finally ready to take what was mine: respect, honesty, and the truth. The fallout was inevitable. I knew I'd have to decide whether to fight for what we had or walk away completely. But one thing was clear: I was done being the fool. The game had begun, and I was going to see it through to the end. My next move would be decisive. I just had to wait until I knew exactly how she'd try to spin this. And when she did, I'd be ready. The moment I decided to act, everything shifted. I spent the next few hours meticulously planning how I was going to handle the aftermath. The truth was out, and she was sitting across from me, trembling and defeated. I knew I had to stay composed no matter what. If I let my anger take over, I'd lose control, and that was the last thing I wanted. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You lied, cheated, and kept secrets from me for months. I can't stay in a marriage built on betrayal. I've made my decision." My voice was calm but firm, cutting through the silence like a knife. Her eyes widened in shock, probably expecting me to yell or storm out, but I'd already made up my mind. "I want you out of this house today," I continued. "I'm not giving you another chance to mess with my head. You made your choice, and now you're going to face the consequences." She looked like she was about to argue, but I held up a hand. "No, I've heard enough excuses. I want the keys to your car, your phone, and all access to our bank accounts. You're not going to use my life as your backup plan anymore." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, but she knew I was serious. I reached over, grabbing the keys from the table. I felt a strange mixture of relief and hollow emptiness, like I'd finally taken a breath after drowning for weeks. "I'll leave your things here for a few days," I said, "but I want you out of my life. And I want you to understand something. You don't get to keep hiding behind lies anymore. If you ever try to come back or contact me without telling the truth, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did." Her face crumpled as she looked at me. "Please don't do this. I was going to tell you everything, I swear." I cut her off. "It's too late for apologies now. You had your chance. The trust is broken. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I do know that I won't let you ruin me in the process." I grabbed my coat, feeling a strange sense of finality. It was like I was closing a chapter I never wanted to open but had to. I moved to the door, turned back, and looked at her one last time. "This isn't about revenge," I told her coldly. "It's about ending something toxic before it kills what's left of me. I hope you figure out what you want in life, because I sure as hell am done playing her fool." I left, closing the door behind me with a quiet click that sounded deafening. The house was silent now, but inside I felt a strange sense of calm, finally letting go of the lies, the betrayal, and the years of pretending everything was okay. Walking away was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew I'd been holding on to a hollow shell of a relationship that wasn't worth salvaging. I'd given her enough chances, enough time, enough trust. As I drove away, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, replaced by a slow, steady resolve. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control what came next. I knew I'd find a way to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward. Because in the end, the biggest lesson was this: trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But strength comes from walking away when you see that what you believed in was just a lie. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply to walk out the door and never look back.